Yeah, hello, dear ladies and gentlemen. I would just give you a little introduction, and I would like to talk about two major segments of the steel and tube and pipe industry.
So, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Thank you to MMClub for this opportunity and to all attendees to be here today. So, I'm trying during my presentation, my speech to give a sort of overview about South European market and European market.
Good day, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to provide our listeners with a more hands-on approach to the practical issues faced on the ground by the steel companies in Angola.
My name is Kitumitsu Mumakwe, and as said, I'm the Managing Director of the Steel Tube Export Association of South Africa. This is basically an association that represents steel tube manufacturers, and what we do is we basically look for competitive export markets for our manufacturers.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you to Hattie and the MMClub for having me and putting on this terrific event. For us in precision tubing, typically is defined as small diameter, tight tolerances, and our largest piece of business is automotive. We also have consumer products, but automotive is definitely where the big volume is. We're watching closely what's going on in automotive. Not necessarily liking what we see, but we're remaining cautiously optimistic. At this point, the OEMs have launched a couple, they're going to start and then they don't. And so we're hoping that in the next couple of weeks, we do start to see some meaningful gains in production. Seen a lot of surveys go out from the OEMs wanting to make sure everyone's got the appropriate procedures in place. The Japanese OEMs are non-unionized, so I think that gives them a leg up from a starting perspective. The large three based in Detroit are not, are unionized. So that could potentially bring different things where, if workers say that they don't want to show up to work because they don't feel safe, we could see that being potentially a risk too. We're starting to hear too a lot of the concerns from the automotive OEMs is, what happens if we start up again and then in 2 weeks later we have to stop. So that could potentially be extremely damaging to the supply base, to finances that have already been decimated in a lot of the lower tiers. So yeah, we're cautiously optimistic that the consumer market will come back, but we're certainly very concerned. Interest rates obviously are at zero. We're seeing a lot of commercials for no payments for 4 months and 6 months, interest-free loans for automobiles for up to 8 years. So there's a lot going on there. There's also talk of a Cars for Clunkers program. We're hearing it obviously in Europe as well, but so curious the type of impact that would have. But don't forget about fleet sales and the impact on automotive there. So if people aren't traveling, rental car companies are going through real issues, and that's going to have a big impact on demand as well. So lots of things to watch for, and a lot of uncertainty out there, as obvious as that survey you did showed.
Obviously, in recent weeks, we saw a huge tender from the oil state giant, and I think being an oil state giant, you've got obviously government backing and government funds. You're able to stimulate the economy much quicker, or you're able to stimulate demand much easier than in other countries where you've got individual private companies that are meant to stimulate demand, but it can't be left to them alone. So when you've got a giant like that issuing a tender, then it changes the dynamics completely. It changes the dynamics completely. So whereas at one point you were forecasting a drop in demand, all of a sudden with one issue of a tender, you're back to your usual forecast or your intended forecast?
Well, you know, the problem of the problem of shale gas at the moment is the cost. The cost of shale gas is higher than other processes. At least in the US, shale gas is a little bit higher than the non-shale gas, and compared to Russia and to Iran and Iraq and Saudi Arabia, the prices for shale gas are significantly higher because the technology is quite complex, and the requirements also for the steel tube and pipe are also quite demanding. So what is now the situation when the oil price is going under a certain level, maybe 45 or 40 or even 35? Most of the shale gas producers, they are suffering significantly because they cannot really produce oil or gas at cost level.
Let me say, for ERW, depends what's really going on in the European market, at least for this market, because the HRC is clearly on the downtrend. So today we have seen easily the barrier of 400 euros delivered to CFR Italian ports, European ports are broken easily. So let me say, I don't think this will be the lowest level. I think that we will could reach easily 350, 340 as a level, because the demand is really very, very low. Consider that most of the European customers are trying to book locally and trying to book domestically, even if the price is not the best, because they are really scared to go to book longer from imports. So this put in a situation where they need a price to go in the market and to offer to their customer an option. But in the other side, they are really scared to buy. So I would say for the domestic point of view in Europe, price are very weak. I think that there is still 40, 50 euro to discount. Worldwide can be even more. Can be even more because the market is much more open. And here I would say the lobby made by Eurofer and ESTA will try to quarantine the dropping of the price, because it's completely unprofitable for any producer there.
Yes, no. I said, in fact, prior to the discussion, we were discussing whether it was pegged to the dollars, and I corrected. I said no, it was pegged to the oil effectively. But even so, the current president, the incumbent president, His Excellency João Lorenzo, is doing his best to move headway in terms of the diversification. And recently, with the IMF report, the Angolan authorities have maintained their commitments to the IMF economic program despite the external and domestic challenges. It will take some time until the country is back at its boom, and it has all intention to do so, because not only Angola's offshore is recognized as the world's class area for oil exploration and production, and very soon it will surpass Nigeria as being the largest producer of oil in sub-Sahara. I still feel that it will take a bit of time to materialize everything. When the president inherited the country, it was so convoluted with no real foresight and preparation for the future eventualities, which what we are expecting today. So the diversification is working out. It will take another 3 to 5 years, not taking into account any further delays from the oil or the pandemic, of course.